On being presented with the question, how would you approach working with someone with anxiety, we decided to discuss the source of our own anxieties in relation to the course, and certain themes emerged regarding our individual sense of worthiness. Specifically, these were the feeling of not belonging or not being good enough in comparison to peers, the feeling of not being good enough to treat or work with vulnerable clients, the feeling of not being intellectually capable of achieving or meeting academic requirements of the course. All of this resonated with us, regardless of our past academic successes and meeting the academic criteria to attain a position on the course in the first place. From this emerged the topic of the imposter phenomenon, also known as imposter syndrome. We, as a group, felt this is one of the biggest ways our anxiety is manifesting right now, and thought it may be useful to us, and possibly to you, our peers, to take a deep dive into this topic and investigate how it could potentially be treated through art therapy.
The theory around the imposter phenomenon was initially developed by Clance and Imes in 1978. This was based on a study of highly intelligent individuals who experienced significant intellectual self-doubt. Imposter syndrome is characterised by an internal sense of intellectual phoniness or overwhelming anxiety around a lack of competence. The signs and symptoms of imposter syndrome are feelings of inadequacy in comparison to how one is perceived by others, self-doubt, and an inability to take credit for one's accomplishments. For these reasons, people who feel as though they are imposters may partake in the following behaviours: diligence and hard work as a compensatory behaviour in fear that incompetency or stupidity will be discovered, flattery or inauthenticity, avoiding expressing authentic ideas or opinions, catering to the biases of others, and using charm to appeal to superiors. The initial theory attributed the development of imposter syndrome with individuals to an introjection of societal standards and certain early family dynamics. The first family dynamic is that the imposter has grown up with a sibling or close family member that has been designated as the academic superior and is never able to match their intellectual ability in their family's eyes regardless of their efforts or accomplishments. This may lead the imposter to internalise these beliefs, leading them to seek validation externally or attribute their success to fluke, social skills or charms. The second family dynamic revealed is that the child has been told of their superiority in every way, but then grows up to realise that they in fact cannot realistically fulfil these expectations, but still feels obliged to do so. The child begins to distrust their parents' perception of them, and self-doubt sets in. This early literature suggests that imposter syndrome is more common in females, as the draconian societal stereotype that women are less intellectually capable than men is internalised. Thus, women were more likely to attribute their success to external causes or make excuses where their intelligence is not a contribution. More recent studies show that, although this is still somewhat relevant, imposter syndrome now spans much broader and is no longer considered a gender-specific phenomenon. In a more recent study by Sonic and Towell, findings have shown that parental overprotection or low levels of parental care are associated with imposter feelings, and it is also found to be most prevalent in the following environments. Education. So, according to a study in 2001, imposter syndrome was found in 43% of a British university sample, particularly in courses where success isn't easily quantifiable, for example, the creative arts. Number 2, high achieving industries. So, a demand for exceptional performance, innovation, and competitiveness leads to a continuous pursuit of excellence driven by the pressure to meet high standards. And finally, helping professionals. In environments where treating vulnerable clients is involved, a unique high-stake pressure is placed. Feeling anxiety around being not good enough to treat someone adequately comes into play. This self-doubt and emotional dysregulation can escalate into imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is particularly prevalent in trainees or new physicians, but these feelings have been found to lessen as experience is gained.
Despite imposter phenomenon being a well-established concept, there is limited literature that focuses on the impact of imposter phenomenon in mental health professionals. One study which attempted to document this found that imposter phenomenon was positively associated with compassion fatigue, a condition which can develop as a result of exposure to knowledge about the traumatizing events of others. Compassion fatigue has been defined as a form of caregiver burnout, which can mirror some elements of post-traumatic stress and reduces our capacity or interest in bearing the suffering of others. As the risk of developing compassion fatigue has been documented as being linked with individuals who display a strong empathic orientation with the suffering of others, this would suggest that art psychotherapists would be particularly vulnerable to the effects of compassion fatigue. It is therefore vital that imposter phenomenon is recognised, addressed, and treated to ensure that we, as professionals, are able to be the best version of ourselves for our clients. One such individual who has documented her own struggles with imposter phenomenon is Deanna Raynott, who completed her Master of Arts in Art Therapy in 2022 after studying at Cedar Crest College in Pennsylvania. Through self-exploration and art making, Raynott was able to discover the source of her own imposter phenomenon while on placement, and documented the ways in which art enabled her to identify these feelings and mitigate their effects on her attitudes and performance. In this case study, Raynott describes her time in 4 different placements, but we have chosen to look specifically at the segment entitled, "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" This segment describes a particular client that had a lasting impact on Raynott while undertaking placement at St. Luke's Hospital, an acute mental health unit for adults over 60. Raynott describes her experience as follows. While running an art therapy group, there was one gentleman that would not come to the table. He sat along the wall, well away from the others at the table and nearest to the door. Even though he sat apart, he still added his own piece to the conversation in the room. I do not remember what was said that prompted his response, but I can remember the feeling of panic and sadness that rose in me as he commented that his brother was in heaven and he hoped to see him soon. The gentleman seemed healthy enough, not as though he would be leaving his earthly body any time soon, as far as I could tell. I had no idea what to do, and again I froze. I did not know what to say, and so I said nothing at all to him. Instead, I continued with the rest of the conversation, as if he were not there and had not said a word. I felt that I should know what to do, and this incident showed me that I did not, and made me panic. I was afraid to lose control of myself, afraid that I might cry in front of all those clients and not be able to hold myself together. Instead of doing anything for him, including acknowledging what he said or that he said it, I did nothing. Once again, my need to do the correct thing, my fear of doing something wrong, hindered me from being compassionate and present for the person who may have needed me most in that moment. By being too afraid to even acknowledge him, I failed to make the group a safe place for everyone in it. He did not speak again after that, and I never saw him again. Having reflected upon this and her other experiences of placement, Raynott created a piece of artwork to try and work through her own feelings of imposter phenomenon. The piece is made from air-drying clay and titled Change in Progress. Reflecting upon this piece, Raynott wrote the following. This heart has done work. It is aged and strong and looks as though it has the wisdom of years to share. It feels as though it has lived a life, and despite the trauma it encountered, it continues. A person can be imperfect, with holes and cracks, and still be a piece of art. My clients constantly remind themselves that it is progress, not perfection, that they are aiming for.
So how can imposter syndrome and anxiety alike be treated and approached using art therapy techniques? To start, I'm going to talk about more generalised approaches to imposter syndrome. The first one is changing the inner dialogue. Many people experiencing imposter syndrome struggle to recognise their own qualities, but by encouraging people to consider why they deserve to be where they are, we can change their inner dialogue to become much more positive. Number 2 is sharing feelings. Imposter syndrome often invokes a sense of isolation, which further impacts self-worth and intensifies the feeling of being out of your depth. Talking to others who also experience imposter feelings can help to provide validation and an outlet for anxiety, and normalises the feeling of being out of your depth. Being able to share thoughts and feelings surrounding imposter syndrome can also create a sense of empowerment and creates an environment in which a person may be able to think more positively about themselves. The third is celebrating success. Encouraging a client to pay attention to their immediate response to success can make them more aware of how often success happens for them. Speaking positively of and celebrating small successes creates a sense of accomplishment, which combats feelings associated with imposter syndrome and anxiety. The fourth is letting go of perfection. Adjusting the standards of success makes it easier to recognise and internalise accomplishments. This allows us to celebrate those small successes and puts more emphasis on making progress rather than achieving perfection in final results. This will also allow for a change in narrative surrounding failures. Rather than viewing failures as the end, they are instead viewed as opportunities to grow and to continue learning. Fifth is cultivating self-compassion. By taking the time to recognise when feelings of imposter syndrome surface and our responses to them, we are able to gain more of an understanding of what is causing them. It also allows room to be more gentle with yourself when these feelings surface and give yourself the compassion that you'd give to others experiencing the same thing. Sixth is acceptance. Accepting that imposter feelings are a normal part of life can help in the formation of healthy coping mechanisms and reduce the anxiety associated with imposter syndrome. This acceptance can also provide hope that at some point these feelings may come to an end. So with these 6 strategies in mind, how can we as art therapists approach somebody struggling with imposter feelings? By building a strong therapeutic alliance, a client is able to explore and talk freely about feelings of anxiety associated with imposter syndrome in a comfortable, non-judgmental space. Art making can allow a client to gain that sense of achievement that is so beneficial to combating imposter feelings. A client may use art making to explore previous achievements or may even view the beginning or completion of an art piece as its own accomplishment. People experiencing imposter syndrome typically struggle to give their brain time to rest and recover due to constant overthinking. Art making in a space that is free from judgment fosters relaxation, which encourages more playful self-expression and self-discovery, which may allow a client to discover positive attributes about themselves that they had not yet seen. As well as discovering positive aspects of themselves, art making also allows clients the freedom to express more negative feelings or explore suppressed emotions. Clients are also able to gain a sense of control through art making by choosing materials and techniques that allow them to express themselves more effectively than trying to verbalise what they're thinking and feeling. This is especially beneficial to individuals with anxiety disorders who prefer a non-verbal approach to therapy, as it relieves the pressure of having to verbalise their thoughts and emotions. Abby in 2001 states that talking about anxiety and traumas can evoke fears and associated physical reactions. Art making creates distance from the anxiety, which can improve the cognitive regulation of emotions and creates a sense of control that counterbalances anxiety. The effect that this has on a person's anxiety can also lead them to be more able to speak freely about their anxiety and feelings of imposter syndrome. By keeping the brain focused on art making, a client may be able to communicate verbally without fear of being judged, and may then be more open to sharing their experiences, failures, and anxieties with others, which is an important step in the normalisation of imposter syndrome and combating of anxiety.
With these approaches in mind, I wanted to start by talking about a body mapping workshop called Chains Weigh Heavy. This workshop aimed to show embodied experiences of anxiety. The workshop showed that anxiety has both cognitive and somatic dimensions, and it gathered data on embodied experiences of anxiety and non-anxiety through body mapping. From the workshop, 35 body maps were produced. Tightness, pain, and heaviness were the most frequently expressed embodied sensations of anxiety. But when people were feeling non-anxious, their bodies felt primarily energetic, ordered, and open. It was reported that anxiety was most frequently felt in the stomach, the head, and the heart. With this research in mind, I wanted us to think about the feelings that were brought up in the study and the distinctive feelings that you might feel when you're experiencing imposter syndrome-related anxiety. Much like the tangible and physical form of a body map, I want you to participate by using the materials provided to externalize any anxiety that you might be holding in your body in relation to imposter syndrome. These materials might evoke feelings of heaviness, constriction, and tightness, mirroring the embodied experiences highlighted within the study. Use the materials to participate in a dialogue with another part of yourself, and set yourself apart from your anxiety and the feelings that manifest. Vaughan expresses, we use the term embodiment to denote living in, perceiving, and experiencing the world from the location of our bodies. Visually being able to separate yourself from anxiety can help aid your understanding on how the anxiety is impacting you. Ask your anxiety questions. How is it trying to make you feel? How is it relevant to the things that you've already achieved in your life so far? And what can you say or communicate to the anxiety? Instead of replacing a problem story with a problem-free one, add new layers and create a coherent and balanced narrative.
Bringing it back to our original question, how would you approach working with someone with anxiety? We chose to look deeper into our own anxieties as trainees, identify the root of these anxieties, and investigate ways in which these can be mitigated using art making. Anxiety is such a broad topic, and the idea of imposter phenomenon is something that resonated with each of us. We were all feeling very anxious about presenting, and used art making and humour to help make our presentation more engaging and less scary. Thank you for watching.